There's something Kathryn Kuhlman discovered about you, something she should never have revealed. Because when you shine too brightly, the entire universe observes you. And not all eyes are benevolent. If you're here now, at this very moment, hearing these words, it may be because your light has begun to leak. And they've already found you. Have you ever felt you carry an unseen weight on your shoulders? As if every accomplishment is observed by forces you can't name? As if every moment of happiness comes with a subtle shadow, whispering that something is coming. Welcome to the club of the dangerously blessed. Kathryn spent decades studying energy patterns. She discovered that certain people like you, emanate a different frequency, a light that pierces the veil between worlds. And this light, it doesn't go unnoticed. Never. The first sign Kathryn identified is unsettling. You have a strange ability to manifest things. I'm not talking about casual coincidences. I'm talking about thoughts that materialize with an accuracy that should terrify you. You think of someone you haven't seen in years, and that person calls the next day. You visualize a specific opportunity, and it appears before you 3 days later, exactly as you imagined. You feel you need a sum of money, and it arrives through paths you could never have planned. But there's more. Your emotions also manifest. When you're angry, things break around you. When you're sad, the weather changes. When you're in love, flowers bloom out of season in your garden. This isn't luck. This is raw power, interacting directly with the fabric of reality. And power always has a price. Because when you can bend reality with your intention, you become visible to other consciousnesses that also know how to do it. Consciousnesses that may not have your best interests at heart. Kathryn called it the lighthouse effect. Your spiritual light functions like a cosmic beacon. It attracts lost navigators, but it also attracts pirates. The second sign is even more revealing. You feel the emotions of others as if they were your own. When someone is suffering near you, your chest tightens. When someone is happy, you feel an inexplicable wave of warmth. This isn't common empathy. This is energetic permeability. You've become a channel, a conductor between emotional dimensions, and this means you don't just absorb human feelings. You absorb echoes of other frequencies, other presences, other entities, and they know you can feel them. Third sign, your dreams have changed. They're no longer just dreams. They're encounters, communications. Sometimes you wake up knowing things you never learned. Sometimes you wake up with the distinct feeling that you've been somewhere else, with other people, or with other things. You dream of places you've never visited, but when you go there, everything is exactly as you saw it. You dream of specific conversations, and they happen word for word in real life. You dream of people you only meet weeks later, but in the dream, they were already old acquaintances. And there are the dreams where you're not. Alone, where there are presences watching, where you feel you're being interviewed, tested, evaluated. Kathryn discovered that people like you dream in layers. The first level is your unconscious processing the day. The second level is visions of the near and distant future. But the third level? The third level is where you meet your guides and those who want to guide you down other paths. And on this third level, you're not just an observer, you're an active participant. You make decisions that reverberate across dimensions. You make agreements that your waking self doesn't remember. You receive instructions that your conscious mind interprets as intuitions. Not all guides have your best interests at heart. Have you noticed that when you enter certain environments, the energy changes? Saying, people become more agitated or calmer. It depends on what you're feeling internally. This is the fourth sign. You've become an energy amplifier. Your emotion dominates the environment. When you're anxious, everyone becomes tense. When you're at peace, there's an inexplicable tranquility in the air. But this ability comes with a terrible responsibility. Because if you don't know how to control your inner vibration, you can infect entire spaces with your turbulence. And some turbulences open portals that should remain closed. Fifth sign, animals see you differently. Dogs stop barking when you pass. Cats stare at you with a disturbing intensity. Birds follow you. It's as if they recognize something in you that other humans can't see. Animals see the invisible, and when they treat you differently, it's because your spiritual light has bled into the physical plane. You've become visible to creatures that live simultaneously in multiple dimensions. And if animals can see you this way, other things can too. Kathryn always said that being blessed is like carrying a flame in a dry forest. The flame can illuminate the path for those who are lost, but it can also start fires that consume everything around them. Sixth sign, and this one will give you chills. You have a disturbing ability to know when someone is lying, not through physical signs, but through an energetic dissonance you feel in your chest, as if the lie creates a distortion in the person's energy field. This means your perception has crossed the veil of social illusions. You see through the masks people wear, and when you can see the truth behind the lies, you can also see other truths. Truths about the nature of reality that most people prefer to ignore. Dangerous truths. Seventh sign. You attract broken people. Constantly. People in crisis gravitate towards you like moths to a flame. They tell secrets they've never told anyone. They cry on your shoulder. They seek your energy to heal. But here's what Kathryn discovered about this. When you heal others with your energy, you don't just give part of your light. You also absorb part of their darkness. This darkness accumulates in your auric field like spiritual mire. Over time, this mire attracts things that feed on pain, things that want to use you as a bridge to reach other people. Eighth sign, and this is the most disturbing of all. You have moments of absolute clarity about the future. Not vague premonitions, but crystalline knowledge about events that haven't happened yet. You know who's going to call before the phone rings. You know it's going to rain before the clouds appear. You know someone is arriving before you hear their footsteps. This isn't intuition. This is direct access to the fabric of time. And when you can see the future, you can also change it with your choices, with your intentions, with your energy. You've become a temporal convergence point, a place where different timelines meet and can be redirected. But altering destiny always has consequences, and not all of those consequences are immediate. Some take years to manifest, and when they do, they come with interest. There are people who have spent their entire lives unaware that they carried this dangerous light. They lived normally, without questioning why strange things happened around them, without realizing they were magnets for the supernatural. But you're starting to notice, aren't you? You're starting to connect the dots, to see the pattern, to understand that it's no coincidence that your life is filled with impossible synchronicities, that it's no coincidence that you attract people, situations, and experiences that defy all logic. You are awakening to your true nature. And this awakening, it changes everything. Because when you recognize that you carry this light, you can no longer pretend to be an ordinary person. You can no longer hide in the crowd. Your presence becomes more intense. Now you're playing in a different league. And not all the players in this league have good intentions. But before I reveal the 9th and final sign, before I tell you what it really means to be dangerously blessed, I need you to stop. Breathe deeply. Feel the air filling your lungs. Because what I'm about to reveal will completely change your perception of everything you've experienced to this day. The 9th sign is the most disturbing of all. And Kathryn Kuhlman only discovered it in the final months of her life, when she was already on the other side of the veil, whispering truths that the living shouldn't know. People like you don't die the same way others do. Have you had near-death experiences? Moments where you felt like you were leaving your body? I'm not talking about fainting or anesthesia. I'm talking about conscious moments where you felt your soul disconnecting from the flesh. This happens because your essence. Kathryn Kuhlman told me about a man she knew. He had all 9 signs. He was a natural manifester. He healed people with a touch. He predicted the future with surgical precision. But after his 3rd near-death experience, he changed. At first, the changes were subtle. He started to know things about people he'd just met. Intimate secrets, deep traumas, as if he could read their souls like open books. Then, he began to influence the emotions of others without realizing it. When he entered a room, people would inexplicably become euphoric or depressed, depending on his mood. When he was angry, accidents started happening around him. Cars would crash, people would stumble, glass would shatter for no apparent reason. But the most disturbing was what happened during sleep. He started doing things he couldn't explain. He'd wake up in places he didn't remember going. In the garden, in the basement. Once he woke up in the city cemetery, at the foot of the grave of someone who had died the day before. He would find strange objects in his pockets that he didn't remember picking up. Strange stones, photographs of people he didn't know. keys that didn't open any locks in his house. And the people around him, they started having nightmares. All of them, simultaneously. Nightmares where he appeared, but not as they knew him, as something different. Something that used his face as a mask. The nightmares were always the same. He would visit them in their sleep and ask permission to borrow something from them. Their memory, their energy, their will. And in the dream, they always said yes. Because it was impossible to say no to those eyes that were no longer his eyes. This is the real danger of being blessed. It's not the responsibilities. It's not the envy of others. The real danger is that you become a channel, and you don't always control what passes through you. There are forces on the other side that can't manifest on this plane without a host. And people like you are perfect hosts. Because you already have the energetic infrastructure. You already have the spiritual circuits open. All they need to do is convince you to give permission. And they are very, very convincing. Kathryn Kuhlman always said that the line between being a channel of light and being a channel of darkness is thinner than anyone imagines. Sometimes the difference is just a choice. A single decision made in a moment of vulnerability. A single word whispered in the dark. But here's something few know. Something Kathryn Kuhlman discovered at the end of her life, when it was too late for her. But maybe it's not too late for you. You can choose. You can always choose. Even if you've made agreements you don't remember. Even if you've given permissions you shouldn't have given. Even if you feel like you've lost control of your own light. You can still choose. Because free will is the most fundamental law of the universe. And no entity, no matter how powerful, can violate this law. They can try, they can pressure, they can whisper, they can threaten, but they cannot force. The choice will always be yours. And if you choose to reclaim your power, if you choose to purify your light, if you choose to reconnect with your true essence, there are methods. There are protections. There are ways to cleanse spiritual channels and close portals that should never have been opened. The first step is recognition, admitting you are no longer who you were when it all began. That during the awakening process, you may have accepted help from questionable sources. That your light may have been filtered through lenses that distorted its original purity. The second step is conscious refusal. You need to verbally, out loud, revoke any permission you've given, consciously or unconsciously. You need to declare that your energy, your essence, your power belong only to you and the divine source from which you came. But beware, when you do this, when you truly reclaim your power, there will be resistance. Things that fed on your energy will try to convince you that you're making a mistake. They will whisper that you need them, that without them, you would lose your gifts, that you would become ordinary, insignificant, lost. That's a lie. Your true power never came from them. They merely took advantage of channels you already possessed, spiritual parasites that found a host vibrating at the right frequency. The third step is active purification. This involves specific practices that Kathryn Kuhlman developed over decades, meditations that cleanse the auric field, visualizations that seal dimensional breaches, mantras that re-establish your original frequency, and protections, energetic shields you need to learn to build and maintain. Because once you rid yourself of negative influences, you need to ensure they don't return. But this requires courage. Courage to confront what you have become. Courage to admit that you may have lost your way. Courage to acknowledge that your light may have been corrupted. And courage to ignite a new flame, a pure flame, a flame that burns so intensely that no shadow can approach. Kathryn Kuhlman taught me something before she passed. She said, being dangerously blessed isn't a condemnation. It's a test. A cosmic test to see if you can wield power without being corrupted by it, if you can illuminate the world without being consumed by your own light, and if you can choose love, even when fear whispers more seductive promises. She spent the last years of her life documenting cases like yours, people born with open spiritual circuits, old souls incarnated in modern bodies, beings carrying frequencies from other dimensions, other eras, other levels of consciousness. Kathryn Kuhlman discovered that you are not accidents. You are seeds, strategically planted at crucial moments in human history, programmed to awaken when humanity most needs living examples that there is something beyond materiality. But this programming comes with vulnerabilities, because to function on this dense plane, you need to forget who you truly are. And in the process of remembering, in the process of awakening, you become temporarily confused about your true origin. It's in this confusion that other forces infiltrate, entities that know how to mimic the voice of your soul, that know how to disguise themselves as spiritual guides, that know how to offer shortcuts to powers you already possess naturally. Kathryn Kuhlman called this evolutionary hijacking, the moment where your natural awakening is diverted to serve agendas that are not your own. Because in the end, the difference between an angel and a demon is not the power they wield, it's how they choose to use that power. You were chosen to carry this light, not by chance, not by luck, but because there is something in your essence that remains pure, something that not all temptations can touch, something that shines more intensely the greater the darkness around it. And perhaps this is the true purpose of being dangerously blessed. Not to be a lighthouse that attracts lost ships, but to be a light that teaches other lighthouses to shine. To be a flame that ignites other flames. To be a choice that inspires other choices. Because when you choose the light, truly choose, you don't just save yourself, you save everyone your light touches. And that is the most dangerous blessing of all. Because once you choose to be pure light, you can no longer hide what you are. You become a living declaration that darkness does not have the last word, that love is stronger than fear, that choice always matters. And there are forces in this universe that will do anything to stop you from discovering this. Anything. But if you've come this far, if you've listened to these words until the end, perhaps it's because your light has already made the choice. Perhaps it's because deep down, you've always known you were more than you appear to be. more powerful than you imagine, more important than you believe, and more loved, much more loved than the voices in your head try to convince you. Kathryn Kuhlman was right about one thing. You are dangerously blessed. Dangerous to those who want to keep this world in darkness. Dangerous to those who profit from fear. Dangerous to those who need you to believe you are small and insignificant. Because when you shine with your authentic light, when you stop hiding, when you completely embrace who you came to be on this planet, you become a threat to entire systems that depend on collective unconsciousness. You become living proof that other possibilities exist, other paths, other ways of being, and that scares those who have built empires based on human limitation. Because you are not limited. You never were. And now you know. But knowing is not enough. Knowledge without action is just intellectual entertainment. True transformation happens when you decide to live what you've discovered.